This episode of the BREWtally Speaking podcast is brought to you by On Point Pomade. Keep your beard and hair looking on point with their line of pomades and beard oils over at onpointpomade.com. Use our code BSP15 at checkout and get 15% off your total purchase order. So thanks again to On Point Pomade for sponsoring our show. This episode is also sponsored by the Bean Bastard Coffee. Head over to thebeanbastard.com and pick up any one of their delicious hand-roasted coffees. Coffee lovers will also enjoy their hand-cut and handmade espresso candles and soaps as well. If you're in the Buffalo, New York area, head to their store located at 448 Elmwood Avenue. And thanks again to the Bean Bastard for supporting this show. The Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. With over 500,000 officially licensed items in their online store, you're guaranteed to find something you need. Use our code BREWtally and get 10% off your total purchase order. Now on to the show.
People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give
up. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking podcast. I am your host, John. This episode's guest is the returning Brandan Schieppati of Bleeding Through, who have a new EP out called Rage. This was actually one I was looking forward to. Last time Brandan came on the show, holy shit, everyone, I think everyone on the internet heard about the news that Brandan had made from the show, basically talking about polishing a turd. That's what bands had learned how to do. And it's kind of where we actually pick up with this conversation, but I don't really want to spend too much time talking about it, because then it kind of negates the whole point of listening to the actual episode. All that aside, this week, if you are already aware, I've already dropped 2 episodes. I dropped the episode with Andrew from Dance Gavin Dance Idola, and I also dropped the episode with Tony Foresta of Municipal Waste Iron Reagan. And you're going to be getting a lot more episodes this week. I am plowing through what I've already done over the last month and a half and getting them out so they're kind of more in a timely manner of things that have been discussed. So today I will be dropping the episodes with Brandan, and I will also be dropping the episode with Josh James from Stick to Your Guns, as well as my episode with Maria Lessing of Future Palace, Patrick Galante of Ice Nine Kills, Kirk Winstein of The Mighty Crowbar, and Justin Foley of Libeika, his new project, but also known from Kill Switch Engage. So the goal is I'm just going to drop all these. I'm probably going to record all the intros and outros today as to when I'm actually going to drop them. So you're just going to get 2 yesterday, 2 today, probably 2 tomorrow, 2 the next day, and that should pretty much put out everything I've got. I'm doing another chat today as of when I'm recording, so I'm going to be busy. So, fuck it. Let's just get right into this conversation with Brandan. I'll see you on the other side of it. I wanted to take a moment though, and I hit record just so you're aware.
Sure. Is this gonna be film too? Sorry.
I mean it can. I do it because the software I use does that. But if you don't want it to, that's totally fine too. I'll leave it up to you.
Fine. It's totally fine.
Okay. No, I was gonna say I wanted to kind of thank you for the last time we did this. When I think I had the old show name, you made a comment that on the show that just went so fucking viral. That it was like one of the first times like where I'd ever had that experience of just like, beyond like a blabbermouth or something, but like alt press and like overseas sites and so forth, to where then even you guys were like, we told you with this new record, we weren't fucking around. Like, here it is. Like, we're coming straight from the hip. Fuck you all. Like, whatever. And it was just kind of funny to see, because my comment or my question at the time was more like, with you working out and owning a gym, like, were there any bands, at the time that were like getting you interested in being like, fuck, man, we got to put out something because I want to play with these bands. I'm inspired by these bands. You're like, no, actually, it's the opposite. Like, everyone learned how to polish a turd. And it was just so interesting to me to kind of see so many people kind of give you hate because I'm like I was just kind of saying, you've always been that person. Like, lyrically, in anything, you've always been a no bullshit person. Well, so it was funny to me to see so many people be like, oh, who the fuck does he think he is?
Well, I'm Brandon from Bleeding Through. We've been a band for 22 years. Who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say that as like an asshole, but it's like, we've just done things our own way. Like, why should I say like I was inspired by it? You know what I mean? Like this new record was a little bit different. The new recording is a little bit different. I did listen to like, and it's not like I'm out of touch and don't listen to new bands. I listen to everybody, but this new record, I kind of like was looking for a little bit of inspiration. And even though like the new songs don't sound like these bands, but it's like, I was talking to Brian from Knocked Loose. We played with him in Texas, and I'm just like, he's like, dude, oh my God, like, you just watched us play? And I'm like, yeah, I fucking love your band. He's like, really? And I'm like, dude, straight up, like, last couple years, like, kind of like listening to new bands and what inspires me. And they did. And that band totally, I'm like, dude, your band, like, totally inspired me. You know what I mean? Like, seeing this band that's, like, younger, that just comes up, there's just no bullshit. They're fucking heavy. It's raw. And it's getting good run. And, like, people love it. And they're getting, like, popular, which is rad to see. So that was, like, more how it inspired me this time. I mean, like, it's just every Bleeding Through record, people ask, like, what records did you listen to? And I'm like, I listen to old Bleeding Through records. And then I think to myself, like, how can we make this better? What are the parts that I like? Like, what is us? Because I just truly want to be us. Like, we went through so long, like, for years where people were like, oh, they're just going to try to turn into, like, a rock band, kind of like the rest of the bands in our area, like, that did it. And they took that swing and, sometimes it hit, sometimes it didn't. But, like bands like Avenged Sevenfold and Atreyu and Throwdown and 18 Visions and Thrice and all these bands turned into try to do radio shit. That's never been my vibe, man. Like, we're a fucking, for as taboo as it said, it's like, we're a fucking metalcore band. And I'm okay with saying that. Like, that's where we came from. It was a mix of metal and hardcore, and we're still kind of the same. We've always used like very like black metal influence. And the best thing I love is when people are like, there's just like, you sing on this record. I'm like, you obviously have never heard us before because it's on every fucking record. You know what I mean? So it's not me being a dick. It's just like, this is the way we are. And I don't feel the need to like give props to like other bands for my band. No one's really fucking helped us. Like, we worked our fucking asses off. Like, even though we're friends with like a lot of bands and we've toured with all the bands that I've always wanted to tour with, it's more like no one's ever been like, hey, we'll just be buddies and take you on fucking tour with us. It's like, no, like, Josta said it the best way. He said, nobody in the beginning would take Hatebreed on tour because nobody wanted to play after fucking Hatebreed. And he's like, and he even said to me, he's like, that's the reason why we've never offered you a tour in the US. He's like, we don't want to play after you guys. Like, and that was more like dude, that's a big compliment. And so we just headlined a lot and did whatever tours we could. And it's kind of this way we go. We've just never really wanted to coattail off bands. We've never wanted to be like, oh, I listened to fucking so-and-so, and you could tell the obvious inspiration and the obvious like influence. We just basically just influence ourselves.
Well, I think something in what you just said is really kind of refreshing. But I mean, like I said, it's always been sort of your mantra of sorts where it's like DIY till we die kind of. But yeah, I think the thing that's refreshing is the fact that, you're able to say like, we are who we are. We do what we do. We are where we find strength or where we find the way to push ourselves as individuals or musicians is from within and based on what we've done. Because I sometimes feel like, and I think that's why, first and foremost, I think anyone who has listened to the band from the start would know that like you're not any one type of style. So, to kind of see where the band's sound has gone, it's not surprising because it's like you've kind of thrown in a little bit of everything always. So how do you like the expansion of the sound is not a surprise, but the expansion of being able to do it well to figure out like maybe that idea doesn't need to go on this long. It's kind of knowing when to like curtail it a little bit and kind of know less is more. And I think that's something you learn from experience, definitely, and getting older. But the other thing too that I find interesting is, I've been talking a lot with a friend that I'm a friend's band that I'm kind of working with, and they've been a band for like 20 years, and they're kind of starting to see some success now, and which is weird. And it's one of those where it's a true testament to hard work will pay off. You just gotta fucking put in the time, because you know the 20-night overnight success story. And it's one of those where, you know, he's had the same thing where like so many industry people will tell him to his face, oh, we love you. We love your band. We should tour sometime. And then one day I was just like, fucking start calling these people out. And then he was like, well, and I go, honestly, what the fuck do you have to lose? Fake friendships? Fuck them. Call them out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like the industry itself, from what I've learned in the couple of years of me doing this and booking shows and stuff like that, I get so much of that like lip service to your face, and then no one's fucking real to you when it comes time for help or anything, even though they want to help you. And you're like, I don't need your fucking help then. If you can't do anything anyway and your word's no good, then what fucking good are you? Well, and I feel like the industry is full of that. And I kind of love the fact that you're like, we're not going to ride on anyone's coattails. The success we have is because of us, the hard work we put in. Yeah. And why wouldn't I want to champion myself?
Well, and it's kind of like the industry kind of turned into this like popularity club. Like, you know, when we saw like the kind of like rise of like our type of music, right? It was just like bands started getting management, right? And if I remember that being like, holy shit, like bands getting managers. Like we were one of the first bands I knew that had like a manager, and he was just like a friend that just kind of looked out for us. We had opportunities to like switch over to other management, but what we started seeing was like, it's like, people would just work with certain people, and it was like a cool people's club. And I just never really thought that like we were that band. I don't want to play favors. I don't want to have to like give anybody a favor back. And, you know, it's like, we didn't, like I said, like, I don't want to think we got anywhere because of like a favor, you know what I mean? Or anything like that. It's like, we just knew from like day one, like we're going to have to do this our own. Like we're okay with headlining tours. Like we don't need to be on like support for all these bands. And even though we did, we've toured with everybody that we've wanted to, but you know, it wasn't, that's not what made us, you know what I mean? Like, and I just always had that mentality, and we always had the mentality, like, we're just going to go out there and we're going to be us, and just, if people like us, rad. If they don't, like, let's just be us. You know, it's just, we've seen through like the last, like, you know, 15 years, especially, fuck man. And like, you look at bands now and it's like, our drummer says the best way. He's like, when did Backstreet Boys start putting breakdowns in their song? Like, when did that happen? Why? And it's like, but it's okay. I'm not a hater, so I like a lot of fucking shit. But you know, he said that, and I'm like, started listening to these bands, and I'm just like, damn, you're totally right. Like, this could be a straight pop song, but then there's like this obscure deathcore breakdown in the middle, and you're just like, that's cool, whatever they're doing, but it's just not us. You know what I mean? And we've had people try to influence us all the time, like work with this producer, try to do a radio track. And I'm like, dude, once you try to swing for those fences and you miss, you're fucking done. Like, yep. And it's like you alienated all your fucking fan base, trying to get them into like being into like whatever. And you're seeing a lot of bands now almost like come back and pretend that, oh no, we didn't just stick our middle finger in your face and say, fuck you, we're going to try to be rock stars, and it didn't work, now we're coming back. It's like, there's so many bands doing that now. And I'm like, well, when we came back, it was more like, well, our last we didn't try to do something that was out of the ordinary. Like, I remember when The Truth came out and everybody's like, oh, the next record is going to be, this will be their radio record. This will be like the radio. And it's like, we put out Declaration, and it was just like our gnarliest record. And we did that because that's what truly was coming from us. But also because like, we got sick of fucking hearing that. Like, I'm not a rock and roll singer, man. Like, I'm not. Like, I came from the hardcore scene, and I run around stage and scream into a microphone and occasionally sing. And it's like I remember talking to Matt from Avenged and just about like what they went through to like become like this rock band. And it's like, dude, it took money. Like, they wrote a fucking City of Evil is an incredible record that didn't get any play at first. And it was like their label had to push harder for them and had to like force it. And eventually it caught, and it was like fucking awesome. And I mean, I love that band, but it's like, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have a career doing like what we want to do. I don't want to look at our discography and be like, love this record, love this record, love this record. Oh, these two records though. And then, you know what I mean? It's like, we could pull up to a show and be like, we've always been this way, you know?
I think and this is something I've talked about on the show quite a bit, because I think the thing we retroactively kind of forget is, a lot of you guys were young, like really young, when you're putting out the first couple records, signing, record contracts and all that kind of shit. And, to a degree, I sort of do understand the like changing of sound, because I mean, I know, like, I've always listened to the shit I've always liked, whether it's popular or whatever. I mean, like, literally last night I was seeing a friend that is the drummer for Train now.
Yeah.
And I have booked him in his like sort of like post-hardcore kind of band like 8 years ago. But it's one of those where it's like everyone was like staring at me like, who the fuck are you and why are you here? Because you don't look like you belong at this show.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I like Jewel. That's fine. Blues Traveler's got some hits. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, man.
Like,
if it's good, it's good.
But it was fun to me to watch. And then like I said, I was like, I'm working with a band. And as soon as they were done, I was like, hey, I got some ideas from watching the Train show that you should do in your set that I think would be really fucking cool. Because I looked at it going, that's a good fucking idea. And it don't cost nothing. But it's funny though, because I feel like we are so unforgiving of ourselves for growing and people for growing into who they are going to become.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's easy to sit there and go, oh, well, fuck that shit. And it's funny because I had that Backstreet Boy epiphany the other day. I was at the bar I work at, and there's a bunch of like jockey bro dudes all singing to a Backstreet Boy song that are like my age or a little older. And I was like, dude, like 15 years ago or 20 years ago, you would have called me a faggot for fucking singing this song or whatever, like straight up. And I was like, how the times have changed. I do love the fact that people are more accepting of just having a good time.
Me too.
But it's crazy to see how different and how different people react to music.
Yeah. I just think there was a certain time there where managers and labels and booking agents saw kind of like an opportunity, right? And I think a lot of bands that were around, like came up with us, like they got heavily influenced. And there's still bands that get heavily influenced by outside influences of like, you should do this, you should do that. And it's like, we just were one of those bands that just would not do it. Like,
well, I think
we're very excited. It's like, I love a lot of new bands. Like, whatever you want to do, do. If it's good, it's good. Like, I'm not like bagging stuff. It's just, it was never our way. It was never our way.
I think the thing that's been interesting is seeing, because I grew up in the East Coast originally and moved here to Michigan in like 96. And it was a really, and I've talked about it, culture shock for me growing up, where it's like kind of Delaware is not known for having a giant music culture, but we weren't too far removed from all the other places around us that had it.
Oh, you're right by Philly.
Exactly. You had Philly. I had friends that went to Mass and stuff like that. And, they're bringing hip hop and early metal, hardcore and stuff like that to us. But then it's like, I remember, and I become more fascinated as I've kind of realized that, like hip hop, you had two different scenes from different coasts kind of coming. And it was just like, how fucking wild. Like, I remember asking James from 18 that I was like, how wild was it for you? Because like you guys all had like, the Throwdowns and all these other bands. I was like, was it weird when you guys went east and you're like, oh shit, people aren't doing what we're doing. We're not, getting dressed up. We're not, getting the look behind it.
It was weird for sure. Did he say it was weird?
Yeah, he said it was weird. Yeah. He goes, it was funny. The first time we went, getting to play, with bands like Dead Guy and stuff like that. He goes, it was cool getting to play with some of our inspirations and bands that we loved. He goes, but it was weird that, we go the first time and we're getting, spat on and we're fights are trying to be picked on and all this kind of stuff. And he goes, and then we come back like a year later and everyone fucking looks like us.
Everybody's asking how to do their hair like us and what products we use and what jeans we buy. I know it was a wild time, man. It was wild. But it was like back then it was so like there was like the West Coast vibe and the East Coast vibe. It's like, like we were wearing like skinny jeans and fucking sleeveless shirts and did our hair, and you go to like fucking Massachusetts and dudes are still wearing like cargo shorts and like basketball jerseys and have like, you know what I mean? Like it was just okay, it's different.
I just always think about how wild it is to think about the different cultures of the same style of music just geographically being different, because I feel like the world and the internet has made it to where everyone kind of gets to experience something as it's happening. So it's not as much of a culture shock as it was then. Like, I often joke when I moved here, the first thing that was inherently Michigan that I was shown musically was ICP. And I was like, what the fuck is this? But, something that, kind of, speaking to, you've made mention of the length like longevity of, you know, the band's career, you know, you have a couple of records between, you know, I think Until the Ink Runs Out literally turns 22 in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Vision's record, yeah.
And then Portrait of a Goddess is turning 20 this year, I think.
It is turning, let's see, Portrait came out in 2002, so yeah.
20 years. Is it weird to think that you've had
Actually,
a career?
What's that?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, is it weird to think that you have these records that are considered, you know, landmark records of the scene 20 years later?
Absolutely. I mean, like that, it was something that we just never really thought. I mean, we had like confidence in like our abilities to play, but like we didn't think it was going to be like that. I mean, when we did, for example, like when we signed to Trustkill Records, it was always funny. Like we did, we recorded "This Is Love, This Is Murderous" and we sent it to the label, and I didn't hear back from them for like a week, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I finally called the label. I'm like, what do you think? And they basically said, it's not what we thought it was going to be. And I'm like, well, what did you think it was going to be? And they're like, well, we thought it was going to be more like streamlined, like Killswitch Engage.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay. And I remember being like defeated and like telling my band that, and they're just like, what? And I remember having like a conversation with the band, and like the band's like, fuck it, fuck that label, like let's go fucking work this fucking record and see what happened. And now it's by far the biggest selling Trustkill record of all time. Like both that and The Truth are, and it's like our label even doubted us. Like our label was like, you know, Trustkill had the 3 OC bands, and like, dude, like we were even though we were selling records and drawing way more people and getting better opportunities to like go and like play in front of new people, like we were like always like third in line. Like Trustkill was always like 18 visions, 18 visions, 18 visions, 18 visions. And we're like, whatever, we're just going to do what we do. Yeah.
I think from kind of befriending and talking to some people that have been on Trustkill, I mean, I can say this because I was not on the label and I don't know anyone personally on the label, yeah. But it seems to me from an outsider that it seemed like they just habitually fuck their own bands up. Like, yeah, I know a lot of a band, like, sorry to cut you off. I know a lot of bands that literally had a record. They're ready to go. They're getting on these great tours. And then the label would just sit on the record for like 8 months to a year. And you're like, all that momentum of all those tours, you just fucked the like release of this record up.
Yeah. And it, you know, in one way I'll say that I think that the label and the bands and the industry and the scene just got too big for that label, and they had no idea what to fucking really do. And they were looking for outside sources, like people that used to work for like Sony and Red Distribution, to come in and tell them what to do. And those were, like I said, like those were the reasons why like they were all about 18 Visions, because all these big major label people were saying, this is the band you need to push. Like these other bands, who cares? Like this is the band you need to push. So we're like, okay, whatever. And it's like, so I think they kind of just lost control of like what the label was and how to take care of the bands, because I think they just kind of like outsourced to other opinions. And it's kind of like what happened with like a lot of bands in that area of getting, like I said, of getting that like outside influence to change. And I think Trustkill, that happened to Trustkill. I really do. Like I remember when he signed like a major like distribution deal, and it just fell apart after that. And it was like, fuck. And it's like, we put out This Love Is Murderous. We put out The Truth. We just got done touring with Slayer and Manson, and we were going to go record Declaration. And like they didn't give us our recording budget. So like we started recording that record in Vancouver, like I paid for it. You know what I mean? I paid for the first half of that recording, and it took forever for them to even get us a recording. And we're like, dude, we are your biggest fucking band. Like, what are you doing? And it was like, they didn't promote Declaration because they didn't like the record. That's another record they didn't like. They didn't like the record. Declaration in Europe, Australia, when we were on Roadrunner over there, it was fucking amazing. But in the States, they just were over it, you know? And I think that was just all outside influence, and them being influenced by people telling them what to push and what not to push. But I love Declaration. I think it's a fucking phenomenal record, and it's my favorite record we've done. And it's like, that record just got fucking shelved for like no reason. Not like we didn't earn it. It just got fucking shelved. Like, and I think a lot of people didn't get to hear that record.
I remember very minimal press around it, because it's weird. it's weird being like my age, like being almost 40 now.
Yeah.
And remembering how things were
Mm-hmm.
like, full page ads, end caps in a store or whatever. And, I remember seeing kind of like in a lot of like the Outburn magazines, like when This Is Love, This Is Murder was coming out. And the truth, I remember it like be like very minimal. It was like for all the press and then the DVD that came out afterward, like of kind of like the band coming together and all that. It was like, okay, you put all this money behind the band to get them in front of your face and all the exposure. And then it's like, by the time the truth was coming out, it was like, I remember just the stark contrast of the album cover itself.
Yeah.
And then I think I remember something lame being like, this record's so brutal, we can't even show you anything else.
It's just, yeah.
And then you're just like, that's how you're trying to sell the record, is the insert on the record. Like, the fuck is that? And same with Declaration. It's like, I barely remember any press. And at the time, it's like, that was crazy to think of, because it's like, then you're starting to see more like Revolver. You're starting to see more American press that's catering to your demographic. And I just didn't see much. And it's just like Trustkill back then. And that's kind of the other thing too, is, back then we as fans were so enamored with labels. Like if it had the Roadrunner sticker or the Trustkill sticker or Ferret or whatever, you fucking bought it. Or even in like producers, like, oh, like if Garth Richardson produced it, I fucking want it.
Yeah.
Or, whatever. And it's like, it seemed like such a slam dunk thing to just be able to like push copies so easily. But then you would go to your Best Buy when you could still buy CDs, first week, and you barely could find any of it. And you're like, what's going on? And, at the time I remember going to see you guys, and it seemed like there was frustrations on those touring cycles from you guys. Like it seemed like you were kind of coming out the gate, literally, to the shows when you play them, where you're like, we want to fucking play this, but like, we're just mad no one fucking knows it exists.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy though, because it built kind of like a cult following, which was kind of cool. Like it's funny, like when we play shows, it's like when we play Declaration songs, it's like people like 3 rows back go to the front, and then when it's over, they like shift back to like the way it was. It's kind of interesting, but it was crazy for me because in the US we weren't getting any like push off that record. And then, like I said, like we went to Europe, and I'm like, fuck, man. Like I had like full press days. Like it was awesome. Like this is how, like, I guess it should be. But it was just such a weird time.
Yeah.
Like it was like, I used to fault like the label and this and that and everybody else. It just really was like a time where like streaming was coming about. Bands were getting big from like not even stepping on a fucking stage. You know what I mean? It just started changing. And we're like, okay, shit's changing. Like, we're just going to fucking roll with it. We're frustrated, yeah, but we didn't think it was indicative of, like, what we were as a band. Like, our shows were still, like good. Like, everything was good. And it just was one of those things where, yeah, it was frustrating for sure. And then we're like, okay, let's go to Rise Records. And I'm not talking trash on them because they're good. But it was the same thing. And then we just realized that, like, this is the way that labels promote, basically by not promoting. You know what I mean? Like, you put it up on the things that you need to put up with, and then you just basically say, okay, go tour and sell records for us. And that's what it felt like. Go sell records for us. When we get like emails from like the label, like not even asking how the shows were, it was how many records did you sell that night? You know what I mean? It just, everything was, we would get, calls from, it was all about like, how much merch did you sell? Did you outsell the other bands in merch? Did you sell a lot of records? Where's the sound scan? It wasn't like, how's the tour going? Are you guys killing it? It's all like statistics of sales. And I think that it was just a very confusing time. And we were kind of like lost in that shuffle. And I think a lot of bands were lost in that shuffle for sure. Like, I know, like I talked to like Unearth about this before, like they were lost in that shuffle. Like they put out a record that was maximum push. And after that, it was like, and they're like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? And it just kind of happened for a lot of bands. And luckily we kind of came through it. We put out those records on Rise, and it was cool. But at that point, we were all looking towards like other life careers to do. You know what I mean? We knew that we didn't want to do this full time anymore. And that's what kind of like we took that like hiatus, because I opened my gym and I basically told the members of the band, like, find your other thing, because that will make Bleeding Through so much more enjoyable to do. But if that other thing is another band, do it, because we're not going to be that full time. But there's a spot here. You know what I mean? So we just had to like kind of refocus and get our shit together. And then eventually like we put out Level Kill All and we're like, okay, this is fun. Dude, we got to say to ourselves, like, we're in our 40s. It's like, you know, our guitar player, Brian, it's like, he's 40, dude. He doesn't want to do this shit anymore. So it's like, don't do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Kind of segueing into something a little bit different, you know, not talking music business real stuff. Something that I find really refreshing and something I personally enjoy seeing with what you post on your socials is the relationship you have with your spouse. Because I feel like, so for me, you know, I have, after having gone through therapy and stuff like that, and some things that have happened in my wife and I's relationship, you know, we have learned to give each other space, to give, you know, be supportive of one another in our passions and careers and so forth. And it's one of those where I love to see that, like, you know, a lot of people in your position, I think, would kind of be like, it's me, it's my brand, it's this. But I love to see that you guys like go on vacations, that like when you went to the So What Fest, like she was there. Like, I love that you guys share in so much of your lives, professionally and personally. So I kind of always love talking to people, you know, about that, because I don't feel like we talk about healthy relationships and what we do to maintain them, because I think that's so important and we just don't talk about those things.
It 100% is, man. Like, you know, I got married really young and it didn't work out, and it was just like I was young and we were young. And, you know, I met Lynn's and it was like, she had no idea I was in a band and stuff like that. I remember I said something, I was in a band, and she's like, oh, like, where do you guys play like bars and stuff? And I'm like, well, it's a little bit bigger now. And she saw us play the first time. She's like, holy fuck, what the fuck? And I'm like, yeah, this is kind of like my life's work, really. And it's like one of the and she's my fucking partner. She is just my partner. Like, everything we do is together. It's like, and it's awesome. Like, I love bringing her places, even though people are like, oh, don't bring your wives or girlfriends. Like, dude, my wife goes, she sells fucking merch, she tour manages the shit, she handles shit, because she really cares, like she does. And it's really awesome to have an opportunity to like go to Europe and bring my wife and be like, dude, here's these festivals. And it's like, I like sharing that with her. It's like, you need to be like friends and partners, you know. And it's like, dude, we've gone through our struggles. Like, we go to therapy, like, but you have to work on a relationship, and that's the way it is. Once you stop working on it, it's over. And it's like, it's a constant day thing. And I just think it's just great to like have this opportunity still to be playing music, and it makes it even better when I could like share in these experiences that like were just stories to her before, and now like we're there, and she's like, oh my god, this shit is really like this. I'm like, yeah, man, it's just a refreshing thing, and it keeps me going, man. She takes care of like all my stuff. I'm one of these people that like every day have like a million fucking ideas, and she's all like, dude, you gotta stop the idea factory. But she fucking takes that shit and she fucking runs with it. And I would not be doing any of this shit without her. Like, and I give her major props for that. And I think that as you go in life, if you have someone like that by your side, it makes it A, like more doable, and B, like it makes it more fun, you know? So I think she didn't know anything about this scene. Do you know what I mean? Like nothing. And she kind of still doesn't, but she loves being around it. And she does really well at reminding me when we're at places like, dude, like, look at this. It's hard for me to step back because I'm always in like business and band shit. Like, it's hard for me to step back and like go, okay, like, appreciate this. Like, we did this, like, you know, we built this, we, you know, whatever. And she does a really good job at making me like see that. And that's really fucking important, man. It's really, really important to like going on with your, because like, dude, I know a lot of people in like old bands, and like they're on their like third marriages and this, and they're constantly trying to go on tour almost to like get away from like their fucking other person, you know? And I'm like, dude, like, I find it just much more enjoyable when she's there.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like when I would book shows, she was kind of sometimes like the mean person for me, because like I would be like, you know, I'd have a show all set up, everyone agrees when they're playing, how much they're making, all this kind of shit, and then day of, everyone would be like, well, I want to change like my set time, how long I'm playing, all that. And then like there was like one time I was like talking to someone, she's like, hey, shut the fuck up, didn't you agree to this like a month ago? You like, wasn't this your email? And they're like, yeah. She goes, then you're fucking adhering to it. And then it's just like,
you need that. I mean, she's my bad guy too, man.
Yeah. But it's crazy because like I think, you know, even like with the show, like I remember when I was writing show reviews for a little while, I was at Janet Jackson and they were playing Black Cat, and I was like, it sucks that the band is not out on the stage because like that early Janet Jackson music was so band and musically oriented, and it was like I was just bumming out on it, and I was like writing about it, like I'm making notes, and she like put her hand over my phone and she goes, "Look around, no one gives a fuck about that. You're at a pop show." And then I was like, kind of looked around for a minute, and then it like completely changed the whole like dynamic of how I viewed the rest of that show and a lot of bigger shows like that. And it's like she does that all the time for me, like where it's like she'll kind of pull me out of my own ass and then be like,
for sure.
You need to like see things from a different perspective.
Absolutely. And like I'm really hard on myself when it comes to shows. Like I remember them, I try to retain it, but like it's like a blur. Every show's like a blur for me, and I'm always like, was that good? Like I have no fucking idea, right? And she's always just like, dude, that was great. Like she always just brings that positive like vibe, which I need. You know, I'm fucking bipolar, so I never know what side I'm going to be on. So it's like she really helps like even me out.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's got to be kind of the nice thing for you all as a band now. I mean, like you were joking, you know, we're all 40, you know, we're in a metalcore band. I feel like it's got to be nice at least to kind of be more like literally family oriented as a band, and family oriented now where you get to bring your families with you.
100%. That's like the best part about it. And I remember the first time I ever saw like the family dynamic on tour was when we toured with Slayer, and like they all had their families with them, and it was like a fucking big thing. And I was like, that's awesome that they like get to bring like their wives and kids and whatever. I mean, they're a bigger band that toured with like 5 buses, so it was a little bit different, but like, you know, you're not going to stack like a bunch of kids in a van with us or on a flight or whatever the fuck. But yeah, dude, I saw that and I'm like, that would just be the raddest thing ever, you know? And you know, like Marta and Phil are both musicians, they both tour, and it's like they have family, like they have 3 kids, and you know, it's awesome to see. It's awesome that our drummer brings out his kids to the shows, and it's fucking cool, man.
I feel like that's been the interesting thing to see you guys, because I don't want to say it's like it's not tamed you down as you've gotten older or anything, but I feel like it just like I haven't gotten to see you live since you guys have come back. But I've seen the videos. And it just feels like there's I don't know, I just don't feel like there's the resentment maybe toward each other anymore from what I see, like because like when you, like you said, when you come together, it's like, I want to do this versus I have to. And I feel like, I think that's bled through. And I think I kind of said this a little bit the last time we talked about the last record, but it's like, I feel like you just feel that even on the record.
Totally. Like, and like on this record specifically, like these new songs, like, you know, I wrote most of these songs with my producer, Mick, or most meaning all of them. And it was the first record where I wrote like the majority of it. And I didn't know if it was like alienating the band members, right? And so I remember talking to Marta and just being like, she came down and recorded parts on all the songs and stuff. And I'm just like, are you cool with me just kind of like taking the reins of it more? And she's like, dude, I'll do this as long as you want to do this. Like, I'm with you 100%. And that was really reassuring for me to hear that from her, because, you know, the band is kind of like just me, her, Derek, and Ryan when he's not with Light the Torch. So it's like to hear that was rad, and that was just like that's the overall vibe of everything. Like, we'll fucking do this until like we don't want to do it, right? Like, and so it just felt good to like. There's no resentment towards each other. You know, we're not touring with each other 7 months a year anymore. Like, we're not getting sick of the sight of each other. Like, sick of each other's fucking like tendencies on tour and shit like that. So it's definitely a lot better now.
Yeah, I remember because I had a friend that was in Light the Torch at the time, and getting to talk with Wambi after the show that they played here on the Guar tour. And I was just like, oh, it's weird seeing you in another band. And he was like, he's like, yeah. He goes, but it's nice because it's like, I mean, I know all these guys and we've played in so many countless shows together. And he goes, and I mean, I still want to tour and I still want to do all these things. The rest of my guys don't. And I was like, I get it. I was like, and even you can just kind of, I could tell, like, even talking with him about it, like, it just felt like he was like, we're all good and it's fine. And you know, and I think that's the other part of getting older is that, like, you can go do something like that, and you're not like, man, fuck you. You trying to like leave us? I thought we were brothers. You're going to do another band, and you're like, well, we're not doing anything anyway.
Well, what's funny is I remember like when he actually got offered like the spot when they were Devil You Know, and he was very upright, like talk to me about it, and I'm like, dude, you're a fucking road warrior, man. This is where you belong. You're talented. You're fucking amazing on stage. This is like your gift to the world, is you being on stage playing bass, singing, and you're just your vibe. Like, this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. I'm like, for me, it isn't. Like, I love it, but I love it in addition to like the other things that I have going on. Like, I was so angry towards when we were like a full-time touring band. I just became so like angry. There's no other way to describe it. Like, I didn't appreciate it because it was just such a fucking grind for so long. And I got so sick of people's fucking voices and everything else that I just needed to get away from it. And it just took the fun out of touring, and it took that stress. It like built stress on me, and I'm like, I don't want this anymore. But Ryan did, so I couldn't be more happy for him in that band. Like, it's fucking awesome.
Out of curiosity, this might be a really weird question, but do you feel if you were a newer band now with a lot of the things like the advent of like better technology, as far as like FaceTime and things like to communicate better with other people, you know, labels, whatever. Do you feel that maybe there would have been a different outcome of the band? You know, that there would have been, the burnout wouldn't have happened, or you think it would have happened way faster because you would have had, instead of like getting to a venue and getting someone calling the venue going, hey, like, what are the numbers? Like, like now you're literally, it's like 24/7 tapped into someone being like, fuck, I can't get away from it literally now. Like,
I think it would have fucking burnt me out really quick.
Fair enough.
You know, I think there's something kind of like awesome about like
being able to disappear, basically.
Playing and fucking, you know, there's something awesome about playing like Grand Rapids, Michigan, and not everybody knowing about the show except the people at the fucking show. Nothing's exclusive anymore. You know what I mean? Because everything is like right there. Oh, Bleeding Through played in Texas. I'll just watch the fucking video that people fucking post online. You know what I mean? So that kind of shit was like, it doesn't seem sacred really to play. So I think that would have burnt me out. On another level though, you're saying like, if you would have started right now, do you think whatever? Talent wise, shit. I've always thought that we sold ourselves on being a really good live band. Mm-hmm. That doesn't matter anymore.
No.
It doesn't matter fucking at all. I go to shows and I'm like, I could draw a circle around members of bands and they never leave that circle. And the crowd doesn't require it. They don't want to. It's like they're there for a different thing now, like a vibe and to listen to the music and this. It's just different. Before it was like I could go on stage and if they didn't, we went on tour with him. The only way that any of those people fucking liked our band is because we were animals on stage.
Where is it?
Right.
There we go. Got it. I'm terrible at that.
Awesome. But like, but now it's like you don't need to do shit. You just gotta fucking shred. It's all about shredding. And where I say we're not as talented, it's like, for example, let's use the band Lorna Shore as a fucking benchmark. Okay. They've set the fucking bar so goddamn high. What is going to be more extreme than that? And to me, I love that band. I love that band. To me, like they're Bleeding Through 20 years after Bleeding Through. That's like, if we were starting our band now and we had the talent, we would be writing shit like them, like more dark, more black metal, more extreme. Like they're taking those chances that we took in like the beginning. You know what I mean? We played blast beats. I'm like, I don't know if anybody's gonna fucking like this. And now it's like, it's so fucking crazy. So I went to go see them play, and I'm just like, I loved it. The vibe is great. They don't need to move around, but they literally fucking stand there. And I'm just like, okay. But they have something, and I feel it from the singer. Like there's a vibe, and I'm like, so I feel this, right? But then you go see other bands, and you're just like, as an older person, I'm bored. Because if I want to just listen to the fucking music, I'll just listen to the CD. If they're not going to do anything different or whatever, make it fun, then I'll just listen to the fucking CD, right? And it's like, when we were writing these new songs, I was like, listening to a lot of like newer stuff just to kind of like get a vibe of everything. And I'm just like, I said to our producer, I'm like, dude, these new songs are going to be power chords and leads, and that's it. Like, I can't. It'd be foolish of us to be like, let's try to shred like these new bands. Fucking forget it. It's so past us. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I just think that, yeah, I think if we were a band now playing like starting now with the current sound, yes, I think people would like it, but I don't think that we would have like, it's all about where we came from and the longevity of like what we helped start and influence bands and stuff like that. So I don't know, man, it's just different. Like I listen to This Is Love, This Is Murderous, and I'm like, you will never hear a recording like this ever again. Everything is so perfect, so polished, so sounding the same, where it's like using Lorna Shore. If you take Lorna Shore and you have them record a record on tape, like we recorded, like on reels, not fucking Pro Tools, what the fuck would they sound like? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's harder now. I mean, it's harder back then.
It's funny because I know you don't know this, but Josh that produces them is from here and is a friend. And I know he does do a lot of stuff to tape because he's a nerd and loves all that shit.
That's cool.
But, you know, it's funny. First of all, I have a question for you because I've always wondered as a guitar player, what were you using on This Is Love, This Is Murderous? Because, like, that tone is so... I just don't even know. It sounds so, like it sounds like if you... It's mic'd, but it also sounds like there's so much room ambience to the tone, especially, like, on that, like... the pre-breakdown on Love Lost in a Hail of Gunfire, like that like that guitar tone, like I'm like, it sounds like it has so much room on it, but like that tone is kind of on that whole record, and I'm like, the fuck did they use to, or how did they record that guitar tone? Because I've never heard any guitar tone like it.
So with that record, I used like a original 5150 with a TS9 Tube Screamer pedal, Ibanez pedal. I think it was recorded on probably ESPs, but what we did is we put a mic on the cabinet, and then we put a mic in the room, so it kind of got that like that kind of sound. We don't use that anymore. We just do plugins like everybody else. But yeah, that record was like that.
It was just funny because as I was listening to it, I was trying to think of like the like, and it was really weird because like the one head I kept thinking of, or like the cabs and shit that I kept thinking, I was like, because there was a lot of weird shit, like thinking about like Every Time I Die, it seemed like every record they would be like, oh, like Andy especially, like, oh, I have this cab now, or I'm sponsored by this head or this guitar company, like Ferdinand's or whatever. Like no one would probably even remember those if you weren't a part of like into the scene back then. But all I could think of was either I was like, I wonder if it's a diesel, or I wonder if it's like those old VHTs. And I was like, those were kind of popular around then, but then I was like, but I mean, the 5150s have always been kind of the dual Rex.
The 5150 is a staple of metalcore.
That's what's right here.
2 reasons. It sounds great, and it was affordable. Yep.
So it was one of those. I was listening to that record the other day, and I was like, I still really don't know how they got this guitar tone. In a day when you had to dial it in and manually get it. But no, like kind of speaking to your going to shows, like, so it's been kind of weird because like Grand Rapids, I'll speak locally for myself. It seems like there was a point where, and it didn't really matter what show it was technically. Like I remember randomly going to a Waka Flocka show, and it was packed, but I didn't feel like anyone gave a fuck about the music. It was just everyone's here. And it felt like in the last few years, it's, I'd go see Acacia Strain or E-Tid or, Knock Loose or, even Turnstile or some of these other bands. And it felt like people were there just because people were there. You didn't care about the music. And it's really weird to go to shows that are that high energy, speaking to a Waka Flocka show, it's like, it's fully young kids and it's high energy the whole set. And I mean, he's even starting mosh pits and coming into the crowd and, trying to get people going. And it's weird to just see people kind of be like not singing any lyrics, not like doing the callbacks, no nothing. And you're just like, why are you here? Like, that's not what I grew up in. So it's weird to see that a band like Knock Loose now, like when I went and saw them on the headliner, and Kubla Khan's like one of the like second of four or whatever. And people are like there, they know their set. They knew like the next band set who I'm blanking on now, but it's like, I feel like we're getting back to
it.
Yeah. And it feels like,
I was going to shows for like a little bit a few years ago, and I'm kind of like said to myself a lot, I'm like, why are people here? Like, And even I went to the Chaos and Carnage tour with like Suicide Silence, Lorna Shore, all that shit. And I actually I was shocked. I'm like, every other Suicide Silence show I've seen, people sing along and shit, right? And this show, like, nobody was. I'm like, this is weird. Like, they're from, like, and then I kind of noticed even, like, the last, like, couple Bleeding Through shows that we played that, like, people were singing along, but, like, 30 fucking feet back. You know what I mean? It was just, like, it's a weird thing. You get that vibe where it's more like they're there because that's, like, where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of like that in the salad days of like metalcore, of like the Trustkill Ferret, all that, like 2006, 2007. Those shows were crazy packed, but probably half of them had no idea why they were even fucking there. It was just the thing to fucking be there for, right?
I mean, I did that. I mean, looking back, like one of my favorite shows that I was like, I went, but I really couldn't tell you anything about any band was Dillinger Zao, Etid, Misery Signals, who couldn't make it. And I think there was one other one I'm blanking on. But I went.
18 Visions was on that tour.
Was it you guys? Or was it them?
I wasn't in 18 Visions.
Yeah.
It was Dillinger, 18 Visions, Misery Signals, and not Etid. I think it was 18 Visions instead of Etid.
Okay. But I remember everyone, like, I remember, I think the Still Remains guys were going because they were just getting signed to Roadrunner or whatever. And like a bunch of people I knew were going. And it was like the cool show to go to.
Yeah.
And I remember just kind of like, I look back now and what memories I have. I'm like, I just remember it being loud and chaotic.
Yeah.
But I don't have anything where I was like, these are my people. I love this. I do now.
Well, look at it this way. Back when we first started touring and all that shit, the first like few years, tours didn't have names.
Yeah.
Now every tour has a fucking slogan name, and it's geared to make people that don't want to be there go. Because they want to be like, oh, I went to the blah, 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 blah tour. Everything has a fucking name to it. And it's kind of created that kind of like vibe now where it's like, we got to give it a cool name because we got to like clickbait people to get them to go to the show. It can't just be like, oh, a Bleeding Through tour. It has to be fucking, we did one that was like Spring Breakdown. And it's like, kind of fucking dumb, but whatever.
You know, someone racked their brain like, all right, guys, we got a tour coming up. What are we calling it?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, man.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's funny, too, because I was thinking the other day, because I am a huge him fan. So, you know, I have a bunch of like the posters from the shows I went to. And, you know, there's one literally off to the side of me right now that I always look at when because you're on that side.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those, like, I constantly think about that band. Because I'm like, there's such an anomaly sound-wise and everything, but it's also really crazy to me that like they sound fucking great live, but god damn, are they really boring? But they're like they're also, boring, but they're hypnotizing to watch, and you're just like, and it's so crazy because I'm like, what is it about this band that is so great, but also so unique unto them? But like the thing that I loved about going to see them, and I feel like it was, and I kind of put my finger on this recently. I think the other reason I loved going to see them, other than my love of the band, is because the shows, the package tours, felt like old hardcore shows that I would go to, where it's like you'd have them, then it'd be like Skindred, and then Monster Magnet, and you're like, where are you going to see those three bands or bands that sound like that on a package tour anymore? Nowhere.
Yeah, no.
And it reminded me of when bands like a hardcore band would have, you know, indie folk band or like a acoustic rock, like Dashboard might play with, you know, Terror or something, and you're like, and it's like, and to some people when they see that, they're like, that's fucking weird, and you're like, back then it wasn't.
Back then it wasn't. There was a mix of bands.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like we're starting to see that now again with a band like Turnstile and Knocked Loose kind of doing what I think, and that's why I love those two bands and Code Orange to a degree, where I feel like they do what a lot of the older bands that came before them did, where they take out the legacy band, but then they also bring out their friends or the up and coming, like the up and coming band. And I feel like when you do that, I feel like it supports, it gives one foot to the homage to the old, it gives credence to the new shit that's coming up.
Yeah.
And then it's still kind of building your own thing at the same time.
Yeah.
And I feel like I said, going to see some of these recent, you know, metal and hardcore shows, it feels like it's starting to be at a point where it was when like you guys first came out, and like I'm like, oh, there's something happening.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be huge.
Oh, I'm getting that vibe too. And like, I hate to always kind of circle back to Lorna Shore because like,
yeah,
I feel like a fanboy. But dude, they're responsible for this right now.
Yeah.
Like, they're creating so much noise, and they're so dark, right? And like, it's creating that like that animosity kind of like vibe of like, I gotta be there. I got like the shows, like, you know what I mean? We gotta go to shows. And I was shocked when the last couple shows I've been to, just so many fucking people. Like, I'm like, this is great. And like, it's definitely coming back around, and you're seeing a more diverse, like, you know, lineups and shit. We always try to make our lineups really diverse, whether it did us well or did us harm, whatever. But you're seeing like the diversity, but you're seeing people like, like you said, it feels like it's going to like blow up. And I feel like it totally is, man.
Well, I feel like a festival like you guys played, the So What Festival. I remember talking with Chris and Andrew from like Ghost Inside and some of the other bands that are playing it. And I was like, you know, the thing that has me excited about something like that is, I mean, some people look at the festival like, what's like, either you're a hip hop fan, you go, what's up with all the fucking metal? Or you're a metal fan going, what's up with all the rap? I look at that and I go, all right, who from either side is going to go to someone else and go, I'm a fucking fan of you. And then someone goes, oh shit, me too. And then now that breaks down another barrier where you're like, hey, let's fucking do something.
Yeah.
And then you end up with something, I mean, kind of a weird reference, but it's like, you end up something like, you know, Judgment Night soundtrack where you got like Biohazard with like Onyx or something like that.
Yeah.
Like you have something cool like that where you have these cross-pollinizations of a genre, but it's not done for a commercial reason. It's done out of respect and love of each other.
Respect and just musical admiration. It's cool. Like, you know, you look at like Millennium and fucking like Spirit Box doing like a fucking collab. Like, that shit's crazy. Like, you're going to see a lot more than that of that kind of stuff. And I think that stuff's great for just the growth of overall music and just exposure, because it is kind of getting to a point now where like, I don't feel people are listening to just one type of music. People are listening to fucking everything. Like, I listen to everything. People are really listening to like everything. And that So What Fest was cool because it was like, you know, we got done playing and it's like, I went to go get like something to drink and it's like, oh cool, Sum 41, rad. You know what I mean? Like, that was so fucking cool. Like, and you walk like over there and you see like I can't even, like, the names are just escaping me, but you see like bands that were just, it was cool to just be a part of, you know what I mean? And I feel like that festival in particular, like, there were so many different types of people there, and it was so rad to be amongst it. And like, I hope that it just continues to go that way.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, like, you know, Alexis on Fire coming back. You know, they put out their new record. I think it's coming out. I don't know. I've had it in my email for a while, so I never remember when records are coming out anymore. But, you know, like, to see that band getting like a huge push and like people giving them the credit they deserve, I feel like, because for doing what they've always done. And I mean, Sum 41's a great one. Like, I always love them because I'm like, I'm not super into punk, but I think they were more metal than I think a lot of people gave them credit for. And now people are like, dude, they got riffs. And I'm like, they always did. But they kind of were like, they look like punk rock dudes. So like, everyone's like, you're a pop punk band. And it's like,
no, they riff, man. Big Brown's fucking, he could riff some shit, dude. Like, he's a fucking metalhead for sure.
Kind of a weird thing, you know, speaking of Lorna Shore, something I've kind of talked with, I think actually to Isaac from Kubla Khan, because they had sort of a viral moment for the metal scene of like, when Kate Beckinsale and her friend like were listening to them, and it like went huge on TikTok or whatever. Obviously, with TikTok now, like, I don't have it. I still really don't understand what its purpose is, which makes me sound really old. But it's one of those where like when I see things like that, and I see that it can bring metal and underground music to like the forefront and to the mainstream. When you see things like that, do you feel like it makes you want to kind of more actively engage on social media and kind of get more into it to kind of be a part of it and kind of be in the conversation? Or does it just seem like another headache of another thing you have to do? Because that's kind of how I look at it. Like, I just feel so like, I already have to post all my shit everywhere. And then like, you know, the algorithms and all this other horse shit.
All that crap.
Yeah. And then I'm like, and then add one more thing where it's like, oh, well, here's tips and tricks on how to get your shit viewed. And I'm like, I just don't care. Like, is it literally going to equate to someone listening to my show? Because at the end of the day, that's all it really boils down to for me. And I feel like in a band sense, it's sort of the same way, but I just feel like potentially there would be pressure maybe to like when you see something like that where you're like, maybe I should adopt to this new thing.
You know, everybody keeps trying to like get us on TikTok, and we probably will just because why not? But it's not necessarily like a headache. It's more like, how much longevity do those viral moments have? What's it really going to do for your band? Is it actually going to have people buy your record or stream more? And it's such a crapshoot. You know what I mean? Because it almost seems like the bands that have like those crazy viral moments, they'll live off it for a little bit, but you're never going to get that viral moment again. Like that's your fucking viral moment. And they always, what I've noticed is the last few years, everybody's trying to get a second viral moment, third. And it's like, you already been there and done that. Once your band is always viral, isn't it just like what you guys are? Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's not like, I don't know. I just don't know if it translates. It's cool for the conversation of it, but like, I don't know if it like translates to it. Like, we're just going to do it just because it's more like, it's another way for people to like hear our music and know us and know what's going on and all that shit. Fuck, I don't know, man. It's just
kind of funny. It's funny because like when talking with Isaac from Kubla Khan, I was like, what is it like when that happens? And he was just like, the thing that sucked is when it happened, it's not like I think the record they had coming out was already done and pressed, but they still had to wait for physical media and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, it happened and we had nothing that we really could do to capitalize on it because it was at a down point of the band. Yeah. And I was like, then does the label and everything start coming to you guys going like, hey, should we start trying to do something or do we try to capitalize on this? And he's like, yeah, like, you know, there are those conversations, but it gets kind of hard because it's like, but what do you do? Yeah, what does it turn into? And the only example I've seen where it actually seems like it's turned into something is Lorna Shore, where it's like it gave them the exposure to where people are like, yo, did you hear this new song? And then like it cracks whatever, it goes into like the top of the album charts or whatever. And then it's like they get an opportunity to go open for A Day to Remember. Yeah. And that probably wouldn't have happened had that song had not had such a viral moment. But I don't know. It's just so weird to kind of think about because I don't think of this scene really as like something for everybody. So it's weird when like these moments happen and you're like, but what does it do? What does it correlate into in a tangible way? Well, it's like this. Give me a second. It's like this. I got into punk rock and hardcore because what the fuck do I want to hang out with Kate Beckinsale for? Yes. that's just my thinking. I'm, you know, very close to Hollywood. I've known lots of celebrities and music. That's right there. It's like, but like, I get the like contrast of it, but like, is that gonna do fucking anything really? Like, oh my God. It's like I said, how short-lived is it? What's going to go from there? The Lorna Shore thing was more like, that was them. Like, that was like, here's like our music and it's so outrageous. And so it took it viral. Like, but the thing of like the Kate Beckinsale, like listening to the Kubla Khan or whatever, it's just like, that's cool. But I mean, it's cool, but that's like where it stops to me. And I won't ever like try to push for like, we got to be viral. So we have that like 2 minutes. Like, dude, we've had 22 years. We're fine. Like, you know what I mean? We're fine. Another real, and I tried looking for this real quickly and I didn't find anything. So if you've been asked this a million times, like forgive. Okay. Is it surprising to you that all these years later, and maybe you have, that you still have the clearance for the Boondock Saints samples? No, right? When everybody's trying to fucking like get every penny they can from shit. You know what's funny is, not a lot of people know this. Sorry, not a lot of people know this, but we actually got contacted by people that worked on that movie, like, and they were like, "Dude, like, your record kind of helped this movie really feel like a fucking cult following because that record was so big, and people were always like, "What is this movie?" Right? It's Boondock Saints, and it like was one of those things. And like, they actually invited us to the second Boondock Saints to go to like the premiere and shit like that. It was kind of cool. But I don't know. We haven't heard like them trying to get anything for it. But it's just, it's weird. Because I feel like that's such an interesting thing. Like, you know, and I'm probably gonna ask James about it too, because like on their last record, they brought the sample back. Like you don't see it much anymore. I think A Day to Remember is kind of one of the last ones I can think of with the Mortal Kombat fight thing before Second Sucks. And it's like beyond that, I can't really think of anyone that's utilizing old sound bites from things.
Dude, samples are the shit, man. That was part of this music for so long, right?
Right.
Everybody had samples before a song. It was like cool. It got people energized and pumped up. Like that's what I was into it for.
But I just feel like it's so weird because like I feel like in today's litigious world we live in, I could see like anybody coming back and being like, you don't have clearance for that, or pay us blank, or give us part of the pub or the royalties or whatever. Like it's interesting to me when I can, like, now that all these DSPs exist, it's like, how do half of these old ass records still have these clearances when basically Disney has bought everyone and they will take it? Like I have a fucking shitload of records, and sometimes I put on Instagram like, oh, I'm listening to this today, and it'd be a snippet of a song, and then like 3 years later, I'll get a thing. It's like Warner Music Brothers owns that, so you can't post that. I'm like, it's a record I fucking bought, and I like clearly showcase that it's not mine.
Dude, I used a Bleeding Through song in one of my like Instagram posts, and literally got took down. And I had to like write Instagram like, it is my band. Like, here's my publishing. Like, what the fuck? Just crazy.
I find it funny because I used to do like graphics where I'd put like I'd put a song over it myself so that I could post it on like all the socials, and then like they'd take it down on Instagram and Facebook usually. But then it's weird because it's like, okay, then if I put the still image and then literally use your thing to put the music on, that's okay. Yeah. And I'm like, it's literally the same fucking thing. Yeah, I don't get it.
It's crazy, dude.
Yeah, this whole, I always joke like, you know, you guys, especially when you have like a career this long, it's like, you know, you started because of your passion for making music and wanting to play shows and so forth, and now all of a sudden you have to become accountants and marketing people and tour, like logistics people and merch companies and like all these other things. And it's like,
oh, you get thrown in the fire of being like, okay, now you're a businessman, you got to figure it out. And you're like, fuck, okay. And it was, I mean, that was part of the great journey of the whole, like, of all the years, is shit changed like all the time, and it was just exciting, you know what I mean? And so that was like, I learned so much about like just life and business and interacting with people from like Bleeding Through stuff that's helped me in like my gym and everything else. So it's like, it's just been a godsend.
I was going to ask you, was it easier to transition into owning a gym or a business in general because you basically had already sort of done it in different capacity with the band?
Yeah, it definitely helped, but owning a gym and a business and clothing company definitely is a lot harder than being in a band.
Is it?
Oh God, it's so hard.
So I feel like being in a band as a business would be exponentially harder because of many of the moving parts.
Yeah, well, right now, like being in a band, it's like you're either like successful or you're not. It doesn't seem like there's like there used to be like tiers of like levels of bands. It's like you're either like there or like there's nothing for you. Like underground, like bands that are like a second tier, I'll go to a show and I'm like, dude, why is there only like 70 people here? And these bands have 1 million monthly streams on fucking Spotify. And it's like, when does it translate? Like, when does it translate to that? Like what? And it's all about what kind of listeners you're getting and like all that shit. It's so different. You just never fucking know, man. All you can really do is just personally do what you do as a band and like what makes you your band, and just kind of do it and work your ass off. And if people accept it, cool. If they don't, there's a lot of life ahead of you, man. Like, yeah, it Bleeding Through was my only thing, and it's like my heart, but like there's plenty of life past that, you know? And it like we're talking about like older bands, it kind of saddens me a little bit when like bands are still trying to like tread water and do the same thing that they've been doing for so long. I'm like, dude, like stop. Like, let it just be the journey. Let it be the music. Let it be the love and the passion. Like, I tell bands all the time, don't expect to make a fucking career out of this. Expect to have like a solid 5 years of an existence, and then that's going to be sandwiched in between major disappointment. It just is. Like, first few years of Bleeding Through was exciting, but we're eating out of trash cans, sleeping in truck stops, and it was amazing. Then it was like the label shit, the downturn of like this type of music, the oversaturation of it. It was just like hard times, great times, hard times. Yeah, it's the bands that aren't willing to go back to the hard times and just accept it that will crush them. And it's like, like at the end of the day, we're screaming into a microphone, and if you can monetize that, that's great. But most people can't. So it's just do it because you love it first, and do it because you love it second, and do it because you love it third. And if you're fucking good and you put yourself out there and you do it naturally and organically, and it's purely you, then the success will come. That's what I see.
Something, as you were just kind of talking about, like the bands that are like treading water and all that kind of stuff. And it's not necessarily about that. It's more, I was thinking about this as you were saying that, you know, when you guys kind of walked away and how you've been able to look at your career and what you want out of this now. Was there an adjustment period for you when the band went on hiatus to figure out who you are now that you're not tied to, I'm Brandan from Bleeding Through, or I'm the singer of a band or whatever? Was there an adjustment period for you to figure out who you are now? Yeah,
totally, man. It was a piece of me that was just like gone at the time. So it was like this empty hole, and I tried other music projects and this and that just to kind of fill that void. And I didn't want to do anything serious with it. But like, yeah, it was a hard thing, man. But I think I applied being Brandan from Bleeding Through to being Brandan from Rise Above Fitness. And I kind of acted as if this business, I was the front man of this business. And I kind of took the same approach. So I became more that. And it's still interesting when people don't know who my band is, but most people that are members at my gym have no fucking clue that I was in a band or am in a band. You know what I mean? And so it's segued a little bit easier that way, but like, yeah. And it was really hard during like, you know, pandemic, because they took away my fitness, took away my music, and it's like, who the fuck am I then? So it's like, yeah, there was an adjustment period for sure. It just was, I was so used to that grind, but even though I was tired of it, it was definitely like I had to like realize who the fuck I was again. Hey, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I need to see if a client's here real quick.
No worries.
Sorry about that, dude.
No, you're good.
I know I said I didn't really have time limit, but I got about 5 minutes for a client.
No, I'm pretty much wrapping up right now because I'm kind of like, it's one of those things that like when doing this, it's like, it's funny because you were talking about like kind of doing something and not doing it for the wrong reasons. And it's like, you know, so like when you were on the show, like right after them, that was like a huge upswing for me in the podcast. Like I just kind of hit this like big upswing, and it was like, you know, 10,000 downloads a month or whatever. And it was like, you know, getting to go cover these bigger festivals, like the DWP festivals, and getting all these great opportunities to now, like when people are like, man, you're killing it. You know, have Billy from A Perfect Circle. You have all these bigger dudes and gals on the show. Like, how's the show doing? I'm like, numbers wise, fucking, it's almost like I just started again. Like, yeah. I was like, dude, seriously, like full transparency. Cause like, who cares? Like, this is honest and, you know, growth. But I was like, I think I'm getting more out of the show now since I went to therapy, and I made it more about a conversation and a real connection with people versus a standard 20-30 minute presser where it's just bullshit filler and you're just kind of answering the questions you answer and on to the next one.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah, that's cool, man.
And I go, but I was like, now I'm lucky if I maybe get like 1,000 downloads a month. And I'm like, so where did 9,000 fucking people go? And I go, and why? What changed? I was like, because the people coming on are like, this was fun. I love this.
No, you're a good dude. This is fantastic. I could talk to you for like 3 hours, man. Literally. Yeah.
And it's one of those where I'm like, this is way better. Mm-hmm. Everything about it is a million times better. It's just not getting the numbers. And I'm like, I don't know why. And then got to a point where I started getting upset about it. And then I was like, I don't fucking care. I put in 5+ years. Like I had like, maybe that, like you just said, maybe it was grind. Awesome. Now I'm back on a grind in a different way, but I just have to accept what it is and where I am. And it's like, the journey will take me wherever it's going to go. Yeah. And I'm okay with that.
And it will. And honestly, dude, like, I think that people ask me about like business and being in a band, like what is the main thing to remember and what will keep you going? And I tell people, if you're not willing to ride the wave, then get out of the water. Because if you're not willing to like accept here, and you're not willing to accept here and take it so fucking personally all the time, that's the way life is, man. Like nobody just fucking ascends. Eventually it's going to fucking level off. And then what are you going to do when it gets to that point? Are you going to ride the wave back up, ride it back down? Cause like you're saying 10,000 monthly fucking views to like 1,000 next month can be 5,000. Next month after that could be 20,000. And it's like, you just got to keep the same mentality and perspective moving forward, that the waves are going to go. People's interests are going to change. Like, but once people start playing the game, the blame game, like, oh, because of this, then you're done. And if you're not willing to like take like, look at the positive of like, yeah, you had 10,000 viewers, now 1,000. I guarantee the quality of viewers in that 1,000 people is
way better.
You're going to actually get people that fucking like love this and need it. You know what I mean? Versus like what you said, I should be here. I should be watching this. Like, why should you? And I just think that like a lot of our bands from our time, we're talking, you know, Unearth and As I Dying, Dark, all the metalcore old heads, we're still around because we were willing to ride the fucking wave. Whereas like, I don't want to trash bands, but like you look at the bands that kind of like came up after us, like It Dies Today. Bye. Like, just that's just an example. That's what popped in my head first. You know what I mean? But like, there's so many of those bands that weren't willing to take the bitter with the sweet. And I just think in business alone, it's all about just being able to fucking ride the wave. Everybody has to do it. That's what's going to make you successful. And you got to look at the positive of like, at least I still have 1,000 viewers a fucking month. I could have fucking 50. You know what I mean? And then it's like, shit. Then it's like reevaluate. But how are you going to reevaluate? By keeping your integrity and by keeping you. And that's just all people need to do. And the one disappointing thing through 20 years of this band is I've seen so many great bands quit or say, this isn't working. Now we're going to write this god-awful fucking record because maybe this will fucking work. And it's upsetting. But that's just like human nature, I guess, is like try to be accepted. And we're in a fucking industry where like literally if you don't have acceptance, you're not anything. You have to have acceptance. You have to have people listening to your music, going to your show, watching your podcast, all that kind of shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. But as long as you have it, you have it. And just keep fucking going with it. Don't try to flip the switch, change the fucking script of everything and, you know, punt on fucking third down. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just don't do that. You got to go through the fucking bullshit to fucking get to a point where you're comfortable with yourself and what you're doing. And then you could be known for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And man, and I hate to even hammer on It Dies Today because those dudes were great.
They are great dudes.
Dudes aren't walking down the street being remembered. You know what I mean? Because when it got shitty for them, they quit. You know what I mean? And they were a great band. And are they playing again now?
No, but I could tell you more about all that later on.
That's for another time. But that's what I'm saying. Like, and I don't want to bag up bands. They're using an example. It's like a lot of bands couldn't handle the adversity and stopped. Blamed a label. Blamed to this. Blamed to that. The only one to blame is yourself. If you're playing music purely for yourself because you love it and you just want to share that music with people and share that fucking that vibe and part of yourself, then you're fucking great. You'll have a career forever. You know? Like, look at Danzig. You think Danzig sells fucking records? No. Hell no. That dude was been dead in the water 100 times, but he's still fucking doing him. Like, he's doing him, and he just did this rad tour. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, friends of mine were on that tour. Robot dudes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just kind of the way you got to look at it. It's like you got to be willing to ride that wave and just try to stay positive with it. Be thankful for what you do have.
Yeah. I know you got to go, and that's actually a good place to end with some motivation. But where can everyone find you or anything you would like to plug online?
Well, I mean, if you want to go listen to our new stuff, I mean, really everything's streaming. We didn't do any physical copies of this EP, so, you know, any streaming, anything, it'd be great. As far as like the gym goes, I mean, you could Rise Above Fitness on Instagram or riseabovefitnessoc.com. Like, if you're in this area, come lift some weights with me and fucking listen to some heavy music and have fun. Experience it, man. But we're all like my band and myself. We're always going to be us. That's one thing. And so it's like, I'm glad that you're very accepting of that. And you kind of called it for like being that. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And thank you for the time. And hopefully you'll make it out here to the Midwest-ish some point soonish. So I don't have to go all the way back west because we've been trying,
but like we're such like vacation core right now. Like we have to stick. So it's like,
that's the new shirt right there.
Oh, vacation
whatever the tour, vacation.
Oh, you want
vacation core tour?
You want us to go to Mexico City? Cool, we're in. You want us to do a tour? Sorry, can't do it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yep,
that's awesome, man. Thank you for taking the time to talking with me, man. I always love sharing like stuff. And if you ever want to do this again, you just gotta let me know.
Yeah, 100%. I shoot you a link when I'll tag you when all this comes out.
So I can post it and stuff like that. I'd love to share it. Thank you, man.
100%. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So that was my conversation with Brandan, again from Bleeding Through. Their latest EP, Rage, is out now. The band has been hitting some festival dates around the U.S. Check them if you can. They don't tour a whole lot, and when they do, it's kind of for fun and doing it because they love it, which is really, 20 some odd years into a career, I think that's really the most honest thing you can do at that point in your career, because you probably have done everything you set out to do as a band that's going to be a career band. So at a certain point, you just kind of need to do it because you still love it, and to be able to walk away from it for as long as they did and then come back, I think rejuvenated, reinvigorated, whatever the word is that you want to use. It's obvious in the music. It's obvious in the way that they present it. It's even fucking obvious when you look at their socials and you see what they're posting of everyone hanging out, playing and all that. Like, I'm not saying that they're not an angry band, but like, it just seems like now they just aren't pretending to be something that they had to be to sell a record or whatever. Like, buy the record, cool. You don't buy it, fuck it, who cares? Only like the old shit, that's fine, we'll still play it. Like, I don't know, it's funny just as I get older, like some of these bands that are at this level where it's about having fun, and I feel like it sort of is a trip to see, because I feel like some people are missing the point of like, we're just doing this for fun now. And we make the music we want because there's no label pressure. There's no one that is telling us we have to do something, sort of like Brandan and I were saying earlier about, making missteps because you're trying to attain that next level as a band, trying to get over the hump, doing, all these things, chasing trends. Like, now they can just do whatever they do. And to me, that actually makes them more interesting, because then it's like, when you have nothing to really gain, I guess, what do you have to say? What do you put out? And to me, I feel like that's where a band is their most exciting. And I think the last record they put out, and I think even Rage, I think has been some of the more interesting music that they put out, because it really touches on a lot of what they do, but it kind of strips away the things maybe they're not the best at. They just hit everything at their like peak, at their stride. Just boom, there it is. And to me, that's it's really exciting to see a band that I grew up listening to and getting into this scene so young, that as them as performers and myself as a person, to kind of still be, at the same level, at the same age, and still being in love with what they do. It's kind of inspiring, and it's awesome to see, instead of just another band that's fallen by the wayside due to a lot of industry bullshit. So without further ado, let's start wrapping up this episode. If you would like to keep up with Brandan, you can find him at BS Schieppati. It's basically just B, the S in his last name, on Twitter. If you'd like to find him on Instagram, it's just his full name. You can find all this in the show notes. That's why I put it there. If you'd like to keep up with Bleeding Through, you can find Bleeding Through at Bleeding Through on everything. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Check them out. Lots of fun content, behind the scenes stuff with them playing festivals, like I said. And last but not least, if you'd like to keep up with the podcast, simple enough, Brew Speak Pod everywhere you can find a podcast. We are there, should be there. If we're not, as I got an email or a comment a while ago, like a week or so ago, someone was like, "Oh, you're not on." I can't even remember what it was. I'm sorry that the podcast is not on this one platform that I've never heard of, but I promise you it is like 99% everywhere else you could possibly ever want it to be. So just search for it. We should be the only thing that pops up. Much appreciated. Thanks for checking out the show. Share it with a friend. Tell someone. Email me, brutallyspeaking@gmail.com. We have Patreon, patreon.com/brewspeakpod if you'd like to support the show monetarily. Get access to all these shows before they air. So if you've been a Patreon member, you've seen these and had these episodes for about a month and a half now. So if that is of value to you, go check it out. There's other stuff over there. And last but not least, our sponsors. Want to thank them for sponsoring the show. Their continued support, rockabilia.com. Use our code BREWtally at checkout. Bean Bastard, go to thebeanbastard.com, pick up some delicious coffee. They have other things like handmade soaps and so forth. And last but not least, On Point Pomade, keep your beard and hair looking on point. Use our code BSP15 at checkout and take an extra 15% off your total purchase order. And that's it for this episode of the podcast. There will be another one dropping immediately if you look in the feed. It will be with Josh James, again, of Stick to Your Guns. That was a really fun chat. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoyed this one. I will see you next time.